What's up, everyone? Shirley here. Welcome to BFA, and after grinding for far too long on launch week, I decided that it was time to get off my ass, metaphorically, and make a video for you guys. So today, we're going to be talking about Azerite traits. A little bit. Don't get too excited. We're not going to be going over all of them quite yet. But one in particular, we're going to be talking about today that I've just found to love, frankly. I didn't think I would, because testing it out on the beta, I didn't really see the potential to it. But now that we're on live, and I've had a chance to play with it more, it's been a lot of fun, and it's really good. And what trait am I talking about? It is this one right here, Seismic Wave. And this can go on any piece of gear, of course. I only have 2 of them at the moment, unfortunately. My helmet's lacking. But what it does is every time you overpower, it will create a shockwave behind your target that travels in a 10-yard line. And you can kind of see it there going out the back. See that little line right there. It's kind of hard to notice, and it's very narrow. But what this does is an extra 2,000 damage, roughly. 2,300-ish for mythic gear at the moment, and it stacks. So this damage isn't 2 separate hits. When it stacks, it's additive. So when I'm proccing the second one right there, it will instead just add it directly to the first one. It'll be one larger hit rather than 2 smaller ones, if that makes sense. But anyway, why is this trait so good? Well, for a couple of reasons. Failing horribly to getting my team killed here. Probably concentrate for a second. Go ahead and pop the area here. Get some victory rushes, help better heal a little bit. I was really not paying attention to this pull. We're in normal Freehold right now, actually. Why normal, you might ask? Because I'm looking for a piece of gear. Not for an upgrade, but for a transmog, actually. That's why we're doing normal Freehold at the moment. I've done all my mythics already for the week, so there's no more upgrades really to be had other than landing Titan forges. How do we keep pulling this extra stuff? Anyway, getting back to the trait. So, a couple reasons why this is really good. For Mythic Plus, or normal Mythics I guess at this point, it's amazing because it helps fill out our AoE mid-dungeon that we're kind of lacking on outside of Bladestorm or Breaker windows. So, how I'm spec'd right now is going to be why I'm talking about this. So you could go like War Machine, Fervor of Battle if you wanted some more consistent AoE all the time. Or you could do what I'm doing, which is just relying on Anger Management Avatar for this right here. So get a big pull, and then you just nuke everything down with Bladestorm. And then outside of these windows, that's where this Azerite trait comes into play, being Seismic Wave. Because instead of relying so much on just cleaving things down with Whirlwind, this trait is doing all the work for you, basically. I haven't actually got a chance to really explain what it's doing. We're already on the first boss. So it's doing this shockwave line behind your target. Now this is important that it's behind your target because there is some skill to actually using this thing in a dungeon. But on a boss, it's pretty fire and forget. So the first reason why I really like the trait and why it's great is because it's simming extremely high even for single target damage right now. In fact, I think there's only like 1 or 2 that are in line competing with it right now. Being, I guess Thunderous Blast and oh god, whatever the second trait is that gives you strength after plus Smash Fades. But right now, it's so close that I would really recommend us going for Seismic Wave because the other 2 don't have as much use in AoE. Maybe the Strength proc one would, but the problem with the Strength proc one is that it's kind of clunky. It's really hard to maximize, and the Seismic Wave one is much more forgiving, basically. Is this the boss that I needed? Let's find out. Yeah, it was. Dang. I'm in here for this cloak because it's black, and I want it. Maybe next time. But anyway, it's really good for bosses, so stacking it, you're not putting yourself at any kind of disadvantage in a raid fight encounter coming up. But for Mythics, it's great because this AoE will cleave everything behind your target, but more so than that is when you involve sweeping strikes. This is the bread and butter of it right now. So when you involve sweeping strikes into it, it will create a second shockwave off of the second target that you cleave. And this sounds great because it's just free extra damage. So it's hitting each target with the overpower and then the added shockwave damage on top of it. Now what makes this trait really ridiculous is that you can double dip with it. Get out of here, dialogue. And what I mean by that is, say I'm hitting this guy here, right? And the shockwave goes through and hits the two guys standing behind him. But if I activate sweeping strikes now, I should have waited for the rock actually to do that. If I hit this now, it will cleave, hit the guy in front of me, and hit the guy behind him. But it's not only hitting them with one shockwave each. The first guy, since I'm positioning myself to where his back is turned, or rather, he's in between me and the furthest target away, that will create the shockwave from the first target, and it will shoot it into the second target, while the second target is also generating a second shockwave off of sweeping strikes. So you can actually get 3 hits out of the shockwave on only 2 targets. And in mass AoE, this gets crazy, because this is going to cleave 2 of these things, obviously, off 2 targets. And if you position yourself, you can start cleaving 2 of these into entire packs, entire groups. So right here, I'm gonna try to show you what I mean by this. Start off with a Warbreaker Blade Storm to actually do some damage in here, instead of just mindlessly pressing buttons. So we're going to target this guy in the end, and I'm going to position myself to where I'm angling him into all the other guys here. So unlike in Legion, where you had sweeping strikes, and say there was 2 targets in front of you on either side of the tank, right? You wouldn't just stand between them like you would in Legion, because standing between them for Legion would mean that you would be at max range, so you could actually hit, the free mortal strike and everything on the 2 targets. But now you don't really want to stand in between them. You want to line them up like a bowling ball or a shotgun or something, so you can try to hit everything you can. So instead, this is what I'm talking about. So instead of standing right in between these 2, instead I would angle myself on the side and shockwave through in a line. And then you try to angle 2 of these at the same time with sweeping strikes up to hit everything behind it. And sorry for the long-winded description, I guess, but that's the gist of how you should try to maximize using this talent right now. And once you get it nailed down, it's amazing for doing AoE in between having your Warbreaker Blade Storm pulls. I believe this is a boss. Go ahead, get a cleave on these guys. Still don't know all the mechanics too well on all the dungeons yet. I've only done them once or twice, really, which is fine. Normal, not too worried. Looks like our healer and tank are having a bit of trouble, though. Go ahead and throw a rally for him up in case something hits him out of the way that I'm not looking at. And the reason why I kept Skull Splitter, which I'm not using properly right now, you might have, is because, oh man, I really wanted the sweeping strikes to that guy. The tank's not pulling them together for me like we did on Nick. I should really be dodging that too. But I'm using Skull Splitter right now for the idea that I wanted more throughput on boss fights, because with anger management and Avatar, I've got, melee, or the big trash packs pretty well covered right now, so they're not really a big deal. So I didn't really care too much about having War Machine, so Skull Splitter was the obvious choice there, just outperforming sudden death at the moment.
I'll be needing another drink before I can stomach you lot again.
310.
No, I still have bullets in the chamber.
Now, if you guys didn't know, coming up here, on Mythic anyway, you can actually engage the RP on this next boss, the Ring of Booty, because there's a lot of talking. And then, instead of actually killing it, you can go across the bridge here and go straight to the last boss at the Marlin Suite. And then you come back and do the last one, because all the RP you'll find with Dove, it's like 2 minutes RP or something silly. So if you want to speed up your runs a little bit, I would recommend doing that. But I'd get away from that shatter real quick. But as far as other Azerite traits right now, you might be wondering if Lord of War would be good for this, or even the Bladestorm trait, which I can't remember what the Bladestorm trait's called. But basically, Lord of War is the one that increases the damage of Colossus Smash or Warbreaker if you have it talented, which obviously is really good. For Burst and Mythic Plus even. So if you can't find yourself some seismic traits, Lord of War would be good for Mythics as well. And the Bladestorm trait also is really good for Mythics because it's just adding free damage on top of Bladestorm. Not so good for single target right now, but good for this. The thing is, though, is that Bladestorm with Avatar and Warbreaker already is so much AoE burst that if you're playing with a dedicated, you know, group for Mythics, and you can tell your tank, you know, when you have those cooldowns up and he makes a big pull, you can already do so much burst as it is that you don't really need extra Bladestorm damage. I would rather pad out the small AoE in between each pull, and that's where the Seismic Slam trait comes in. It is Seismic Slam. Seismic Wave, my bad. A couple other traits are okay. I'm gonna go ahead and mute that. This guy's talked too much. I do like this boss a lot, though, other than the greased pig part. It's kind of tedious, but we'll see how it goes in Mythic Plus, I guess, 6 months down the line. But yeah, that's my thoughts basically on the Azerite traits right now. I'm really aiming to get 3 of those and just stack it. Other than that, though, you guys are probably wondering why I haven't made an updated rotation guide, I guess, since BFA is out now and we're all 120, or you will be soon, I suppose. But I wanted to wait a little bit because they've already done a pass on Arms. Like, they buffed the shit out of her mastery just the other day. As you can see, I've got 182% mastery already. It's the start of the expansion. This is gonna get nuts. Speaking of which, this helmet trait, Trade Winds, procs mastery. When this thing goes off, I have like 280% mastery or something silly right now. Oh my god, this pig. So, being that they're doing tuning still and Oldier's not open yet, I kind of wanted to hold off just to see if things have changed, if they end up rebalancing some of our talents or whatever before I did a big full rotation guide. But if you want the short story answer right now from my pre-patch guide, not much has changed between what talents you're going to be using, except for this row, the 45 row. We're going to be switching from Rend over to Massacre. Massacre is just simming out a little bit better without all the legendaries and stuff at 120. Plus, honestly, I think I just like Massacre better than Rend at this point. Having to manage Skull Splitter, Warbreaker, Overpower procs, all that jazz, and then Rend on top of it was just... It wasn't too much, you know, but when you're dealing with mechanics and Mythic and everything, it's a lot to keep up for a lot of players, I guess. So I'm fine with Massacre ending up being the preferred option. Plus, it's just fun to me, honestly. Being able to execute more. You know, who doesn't like executing? You know, not to mention, I love using it in PvP with Death Sentence. So, Massacre's, you know, big win in my book. Fervor is still the weakest of the bunch right now. You can get away with using Rend if you want, but Fervor basically would only be reserved for, you know, Mythics like this. So say you didn't have the Seismic Slam trait. You could go Fervor and say War Machine, I guess, if you had a group that didn't have a lot of AoE for trash packs. You know, if you weren't relying totally on Bladestorm Warbreaker. So I would recommend War Machine and Fervor for that. But on the whole, Fervor's just pretty weak. Even if you do spec that way for Mythics, it's just... Whirlwind doesn't do that much damage right now, especially since Deep Wounds got buffed, and you could go Cleave if you wanted, if you're really missing that extra AoE in your group. I'd probably recommend you just go Cleave over Warbreaker if you really need it then, for consistent AoE anyway. Otherwise, the burst AoE of Arms is just too good to give up. I should not be standing in that. Like little pirate hat we have on right here. Or in this whole entire dungeon, I guess. It's pretty neat. I go and drop a Warbreaker for the ending. Colossus. Execute spam. Once again, I guess I'll pretense. Not really pretense at this point, but Not optimal gameplay in this dungeon. This is not what this is demonstrating. Take a look at some of my raid videos that'll be coming up for that. When I'm just talking live over any of this stuff, it's just me rambling about whatever it is and pressing buttons. Maybe I'll get a mythic dungeon for you guys coming up this week or something. It might be kind of neat. Going over one of the harder ones, maybe like Siege of Borealis or what's the other one? King's Rest. Alright, let's see if we can get some cheeky cleave here with overpower. When they're all spread out like this, it's kind of hard to do. But you got a big group, basically just stand off to one side of it, like I'm trying to do here, and then just shooting the overpower into it. What you don't want to be doing is being like cocked off to the side, like looking, you know, away from the group, kind of, because, you know, if you're holding your camera or whatever, you can end up facing your character away slightly, and it'll end up shooting the shockwave actually off to the side of your target, like, you know, a 45-degree angle. These guys don't know where they're going. Just realized. I'm not going to blow cooldowns for these three. We'll just get some overpowers in here. Now, I actually opened up with it there with sweeping strikes because, you know, spending rage has a chance to reset it rather than opening with mortal strike and getting deep wounds up. If you didn't have 2 traits or 3, I wouldn't do that. With 3 traits of the, you know, stacking it, I would definitely do that. But with 1, probably not worth it. Probably worth it just get deep wounds up first. Right now, that's what I'm trying to do, just get as many in as possible. Now, you might be wondering, why not take Dreadnought with it? Well, it resets anyway, off rage spent, and anger management is just so useful, you know, keeping that consistent damage burst, rather, rolling all the time, in Mythics at least. That and it's, you know, just best for single target throughput anyway, so don't really see the need to go Dreadnought. So here's a great example of why we go Warbreaker Avatar for Mythic, or normal, any dungeon. You get my drift here. I'm going to go ahead and pop Sweeping Strikes, and parry, actually. Help out the healer a little bit here. Just so I could shotgun 1 overpower through that line there. Unfortunately, we didn't get another proc off of it, but it was good enough for that. I mean, pretty decent burst. Coming up on the last boss here. I don't think there's anything I'm really forgetting that I want to talk about for Azerite today. Go ahead and get a Warbreaker in here. Some Whirlwinds. Alright, Sweeping Strikes is up. Now you want to try not to target one of the middle guys, because it'll just, you know, cleave down the middle or whatever, and not really hit everything. So you want to target one of the end mobs as much as you can, like on the edge of the pack, if that makes sense. So you don't want to hit like the middle one right there. You know, if you don't have Sweeping Strikes up, you want to be targeting the one on the end here always, so you can shoot it through the whole line and not miss one of the targets with it. It's a nice little mini, you know, min-max that I don't know, I find entertaining, you know, to break up the monotony of just killing trash in dungeons. Something to look forward to, I guess. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on. Oh, hopefully that didn't interrupt the recording there. Tabbed out for a second. Tabbing my music back on for Harlan here. I really wish they would have updated this attack animation. It does. He shoots those lines out. They're really hard to see before they pop out. Drop some things over here. Tank moves him back. That look like he is. Those flat cannon lines, really hard to see when they pop out. That's right here. Down the ad. He goes down so fast. I'm gonna get him. This place. Oh my god, they just spawn instantaneously. Unless there's something I'm missing about that. It's gonna be really interesting in higher level mythic games. That's just gonna instantly kill you or something. That would be unfortunate. That was a meaty Warbreaker. Dang. Like 39k I saw. Anyway, that's about it for today. If you have any questions about Azerite traits, or armor, or the rotation even at this point, feel free to ask, leave it down below. Stat line right now, Crit Haste is our top 2. Depending on how geared you are, these can kind of go back and forth. High end, it'll probably end up being haste a little bit better than crit. And then verse mastery are basically neck and neck. Once again, it just depends on, you know, your own sims, which one's better. So sim it yourself is what I would recommend. Anyway, hope you guys are having fun in BFA, and I will see you next time. Peace.